Hi. So I want to make a video about how I see humans, I suppose. Um, I'm gonna try to not think of this video being long or short or whatever, but focus on how my understandings about life are playing out right now in my consciousness. So I thought, instead of just talking at the camera and for you to see me, I would just start drawing while I talk. So I thought about an analogy with a plant, and let's say that this is the seed of the plant. And if we think about it, we also come from a seed, right? Which is viable and which is supposedly the best there is in a big lot of them seeds, right? And which lands on a fertile soil, right? And so here I'm going to use a sort of a pastel, which is notoriously impossible to draw on, so above it, because let's say this pastel is the fertile soil, so it's the mother who receives us in her womb, right? And so what I want to say about it is that with this pastel here is that already when we come to our mother, our ground is defined. It's already limited by the resources of the mother, right? And by resources, I mean physical, emotional, ethical, conceptual, right? So our mother is and was herself a seed like this once, and she drew from her mother and so on. And so we sort of are dropped here and here because we are the right seed and we have the right soil. We start to develop as a tiny new speck of life, right? And in a way, we start grounding ourselves exactly like a seed would, right? We take the nutrients, we take the food from the mother, we take the emotions, right? And we are making them familiar to whomever we are. And if during this entire process of development something is totally incongruent with our own type of seed, there's going to be an exit, right? So like a miscarriage for a person, or the plant will never evolve, right? And so once we have enough force and we are well prepared to go out there into the world, we're gonna just, take our learned behaviors, right? And start out in the world as a new person. So not as a new pig or as a new squirrel, but as a new person, because this is what we are basically. And you see here, I put some sort of notes, which are the maturation ages or stages of planets, right? They are here in this order. And until the first planet matures, which is Jupiter, which is our sexual maturation, which is our conceptual system maturation, right? So until 16, we have our concept in place. But before I go to this part, the outer part, the real life of a person, I want to, so this video is more about what's happening in the root, right? So as I said, we draw from the mother, but in a way that our initial seed, our father, can appropriate life, right? So you're going to have a combination of them too, and inherently our family roots or DNA or concepts or value system. And so we are going to have different parts of life that are only going to be certain colors. And let's say we're going to have a component about how we're taking care of ourselves, right? It's going to be normal for us to take care of ourselves in a certain way. We're going to have a sexual component, right? And we're going to see sexuality in a certain manner, right? And we're going to have, let's say, certain ideas about what we want to do in our lives, certain ideas about who we are as individuals. So there's going to be all sorts of, concepts that don't really have too much of a different shade from our parents, as you can see, right? I'm not using any other colors, but depending on each individual, the nuances, right, are going to be different, because we keep adding layers and layers of color. Let's add here in sexuality a little bit of shame, right? That was, still part of my upbringing in my culture and in my family, right? And let's say here we add a little bit of shame too. So we are producing sort of, I hope you can see, portrait of ourselves as we grow, and we use the colors and the concepts of the parents and the primary people in our lives, right? Our siblings, let's put them here too. And the more we grow from the birth, right, from here, the more repetitive this becomes, right? So again, this pastel here, which is very hard to draw above, right? So this becomes solid. So this is going to be, I think, the more obvious one for people to understand the sexuality, right? So let's say here we are being shamed for having sexual thoughts, right? Even though Jupiter, the first planet to mature, is the planet of sexual maturity, right? So we are, you know, in order for us to keep growing, we have to, you know, put our own colors, so to speak, into this part of our lives, yeah, to integrate it within us in the form that we have received it. Okay, and we keep putting layers and layers and layers of stuff so as to protect it. Yeah. And so this root here, yes, is gonna feed everything above it. The drawing itself, right, is yeah, it's beautiful, and we portrait it in a way where it seems rather nice. But the point I want to make is that, if you remember, we had put some shame here. And this shame is going to travel and travel and travel until at one point, let's say here, I know you cannot see it because it's in black, and I'm doing this like this on purpose, because it's going to color all our experiences linked to sexuality. So on this black, let's call it root result, yeah, we're gonna experience our sexuality. And if you if you put the two together, yeah, sexuality and shame, it's gonna create a picture that might look like, you know, getting pregnant at 16. Because, you know, in our culture and in our current frame of consciousness, getting pregnant at 16 is shameful, right? And then all the other parts of our lives will have these backgrounds of let's say concepts about ourselves that are just continuations of these roots. And if you think about your parents and their lives and their concepts, you're gonna see that basically what happens in life is that we are reproducing in other forms whatever we were taught, right? And sometimes a flicker of something else comes and influences us, other people in our lives, like teachers and friends and partners and stuff and situations, and they might give a little bit of a different color, but always complementary to what we already have, right? And we're gonna blend it all as, okay, this is me, right? So when in life we're basically going to reproduce. I think it's really kind of sort of clear that we are more or less reproducing this part here in a different form up here, right? And in the same way it did not work for our parents, it will not work for us. Raise your hand. How many times have you had the same issues as your parents? Just reproducing their mistakes, reproducing their words sometimes. Even our faces look the same towards certain ages, towards more mature ages, we are really starting to resemble our parents as we know them. So imagine, if we go back to the sexuality issue here, imagine that at one point in your life you manifest some relationship, and you're going to be burdened with shame from here, with all kinds of, let's see, what else? This is a bad thing. It has to happen in certain contexts with certain people, certain types of people who are a certain age, a certain mentality, a certain religion, blah, 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 blah. On and on we can go here, right? And then you meet somebody who is the exact mirror of what you have inside of you. And this is the I'm sorry. This is the twin flame. This is the soulmate. I'm sorry. All right. I want to go back 2 steps and say, again, starting from here, from the inner world, let's say, from what we gathered from the parents, let's drop some stories. Yeah, I know you cannot see it. I'm gonna try a little bit more. Let's put Cinderella. Let's put Pretty Woman on top of that. Let's put what else? Let's put some of our modern stories where we begin to believe in some other concepts, you know, which might be easier to see as fantasy, or in other words, lying to ourselves that life is in, you know, a certain way, so that we can sustain this inner concept we have. Yeah. So toxic shame, toxic blame, toxic, you know, hiding, lying, whatever you can think of surrounding a shaming sexual life, it's getting dropped into the world, covered with these cartoon stories, or, you know, that we read and that society accepts as valid, right? And then let's make it even more real, right? Let's say now you're 16. Yeah, you're 16. You are sexually mature. Yoo-hoo. And then your parents divorce. Yeah, and this creates like this big rift inside. Yeah. And so you don't have the time to grieve. You cannot even voice your grief, because everyone in the family is grieving. You don't really know what's happened there. All of a sudden, you don't have a family structure that is familiar to you. So this is where your wound becomes totally hidden. When you first realize that something is not right here, you know, when something strikes this nerve, this is when you begin to hide it from the world and from yourself. And so basically what happens is that it's drawing back to the initial place where it was formed, right? But what you have to understand is that inside here, it stays there. It's not gonna move. Nothing's gonna heal it. Time will not heal the emotional body here, because it's not subjected to time. And so what happens is that we create this huge, like rock, like hard dressings, let's call them, yeah, over an infected wound. And then from these dressings we expect to have a good relationship in life, yeah. And it's as if the wound keeps sending signals outside. Something not right, something not right, something not right. And this might and will translate in, wrong partner, wrong partner, wrong partner, over and over and over again, because we cannot choose another type of partner other than what the wound sends as signal that it needs to be cured. And it's a bit like at the dentist, right? It's first it starts with a tooth or a molar being hurting, right? And then slowly you can see there that somebody is not right, and then it breaks, and then you see the black cavity there, and finally, you realize that it's that tooth that's the source of trouble. And before you drain it and you do whatever you have to do there, the pain is not gonna subside, right? And it's like this for all these parts. Everything here is gonna give a certain experience until we actually treat the root. And so healing work, what it is and how it's done properly, is to go into the roots with the purpose and the help of the outer experience, right? So the outer experience serves you to know the steps to go to a certain wound. And some people argue that you have to actually experience what's in the outer world. I don't agree. I think if you have developed the awareness and the presence muscle to know, and if you know yourself well enough through meditation and other techniques, I think you can really know which wound is being triggered by different events or different persons or whatever, right? And so what is inner work? Inner work is the steps it takes for us to even see and consider the wound. And the wound basically is made up of two parts. There is a physical part, which is the feelings inside the body. And there is an emotional or psychological part, which are basically the concepts we inherited within the color frame and the very personal assignment of colors, right? The wound cannot be treated by us, right? I like to say that only God heals, yeah, and I think we've heard of this concept before. God is the healer. Our destiny, our karma, our fate, whatever you want to call it, our chart, our dashas, our whatever, will decide when a wound will be healed. But in order for it to be healed, all we have to do is to go into it. And this is the most difficult part, because what we've done all our lives till higher and higher maturation ages is that we are leaving from a place where we say to ourselves, this is life threatening. If this gets out, if I look at this, I will be in danger of death. Yeah. So for example, if I look at how much shame I have, or how rejected I feel, or how abandoned, or how, you know, everything that I can feel inside of me, my body is going to feel like it's going to die, right? So once we, I mean, this, you know, this here, this is a muscle. It's a very, very strong muscle that we build or during all our life until certain maturations come, right? And you know, and as you see, it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to override, because again, I'm using this type of pastel that, you know, like, you cannot draw on it anything at all, and so it's stuck here. But you know, what we need to do is, you know, not do anything to it, but just have the courage to sit with ourselves while we're walking here. What does that mean? Let's say you feel shame for something you did, but it's very, very difficult for a human brain and human body to look in the mirror of itself and say, okay, I did this thing and I can live with the fact that I'm so ashamed of it. I can simply lift my head and continue walking on this planet with this shame inside. Yeah. But the more you accept it and the more you let yourself, you know, remember that incident that made you feel so ashamed, or, you know, the circumstance or the person or whatever, the more your body will register that, okay, I'm going in that direction, but actually nothing deadly is happening, right? And so when we have the strength to go into this wound here, or it doesn't matter which one, right? But the more we have the strength to look at ourselves, the more we are here towards the actual emotional wound, the further we get from its outer worldly manifestation, and thus the less we feed the outer plant, let's say, right? And so when we had stayed with this acknowledgement, you know, of us being totally shameful and totally pathetic for the necessary amount of time, we're gonna cut the life off from the external manifestation of it, right? So it's not necessary to think in terms of healing, in terms of repairing, in terms of let's do this thing right. What's necessary is to withdraw, right, from the external, the focus from the external, and put it inside, so that this wound feels satisfied with your attention. Basically, it's like a kid, like a little kid, you know, the age this wound was inflicted is the age of the kid you have to tend to, right? And you're going to notice that sometimes some of the outer effects, you know, are going to be like an arrow that puts you straight into the wound, and you're going to feel like, you know, like you're going to die, and like you're, you know, everything is ruined in your life. But actually, if you just allow it to be, um, you're gonna see that this is your way out of the outer situation, right? This is just gonna be that kid that, once you give the proper attention to it, it's gonna, go do his job. But what I want to say also is that this is a real kid. It's not some form of me explaining to you how it is. It's a real emotional body of a child at the age of whatever age you were when you were shamed, right? And if you think of a real kid, if you didn't give it any attention during the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, the first times you're going to go look for him or her, for it, let's say, it's not, it's going to be scared, it's going to run, you're not going to see it. You'll say, no, I went there and there's nothing there, there's no wound, I'm perfect. But still you're going to have this beautiful flower here, right? And so you have to approach it with care and compassion and patience, for it only to reveal itself to you from afar, and then slowly gain its trust. And for that, you need to be very consistent. You need to be very compassionate, and you need to sort of go there enough times, with regularity, to make it trust you and open up to you and say, listen, here's what is hurting, right? And like I said, this is a muscle that's gonna take a lot of grief, a lot of frustration. The outer part that you're used to living is gonna try and fool you, because in the same way as this kid hasn't been given any attention to, these ones are used to getting attention, all the time. So they're gonna scream, the most the most obvious buttons are going to be pushed externally, so that they call you back into, okay, experience me, I'm your solution, I'm this, I'm that. Sorry. Well, no, it's just the the last cry of the warrior, right, of the monster. Once you start doing this work consistently, you're gonna see that this is an illusion. You're gonna see that there is nothing to solve here, and so it will become very easy for you to flow into this part of your consciousness and allow it to exist, as a shameful person, a person who is judgmental, who is codependent, who is empty, narcissistic, whatever baggage you have here, this is as much a part of you as the upper one, right? So both need attention. So how do we know that a wound is healed? Well, it's very simple. This is a path that's already formed. It's your destiny. It's who you are. It's not like, stuff isn't going to grow any longer. But that pull from here will lessen a lot, or fade away very dramatically. Let's say you were attracted by, dark green hair man with, lots of money and a nice car, right? And you kept having this experience over and over again, and now you know where it takes you. And now with this wound healed, you're going to still see them, and they're going to still appear in your life for a certain period of time, but the attraction to that experience will be gone. You will just laugh at it and say, okay, I recognize this, I've been here before, this is not something I want to give life to, right? And then a more authentic part of yourself will arise from that, because this is when you're going to let God in. God fill you with whatever you're destined to have as your colors, right? So I was starting to make another point here earlier, which is about losing one of the main factors in your life, right? Either through death or divorce, or simply one of the parents changing something within themselves, like very dramatically, very drastically. All of a sudden they have some other focus than you, and then you experience them basically as strangers, right? And so while you're integrating all this information from them still, you are adding yourself grief and pain and shame and bother, right? Because you're not able to deal with that grief in a sane way, right? You have all this baggage to deal with. And so you might find in your life or in other people's lives instances where, at that age, I decided to live my life like this. This can very well be the Jupiter age, right? And, and that will never work, because once you decide to live your life a certain way, God will begin to laugh at you. And then that's one point. And then also that, as I was saying, comes from your adaptation to whatever you have in your makeup, right? Plus a shock that sort of closes even more your ability to search within, because within, what is it? It's grief, it's fear, it's shame, it's judging yourself, beating yourself up. So you go more into what you will do in life, like external, this part here, right? Let's see if we can see better. Okay. So, okay. So, there are these ages when planets mature, and we could say that some are better experienced than others, but I think wherever we are in life is just as painful when we are an entity that just projects their stuff into the world, which is not even their stuff. It's either their mom's stuff or their dad's stuff, or a certain mix of them, right, of the parents. And sometimes, like in my own case, what I sort of decided unconsciously was to act and think and behave in a totally opposite way than my main parent, right? And in other ways, in the exact way that my parent. So at these stages of maturation, what happens is that life makes these external things more and more, let's say, visible, right? Sorry about that. So it makes them more and more visible to us as being not natural, as being something fake we have only constructed from our default, right? How we thought and how we let ourselves flow. Yeah. So this component of these external things, let me make this really a little bit more clear, that this is inside the world, the earth, right? Inside the human psyche. And this is the outside, yeah? And so life will, God, universe, whatever, your own psyche will make it more and more clear that this is not something real. It's just mirrors. And the more you refuse to acknowledge that these are mirrors, and the more you take them as a reality of some sort, the more you will get closer to the mirror, and you're going to bump your head into it. I'm laughing because I remember, I think I was in Brussels once, and there was one of these big stores, and I literally just, I was looking into a huge mirror, and I literally just bumped into it until I recognized myself, So, I mean, I think for me, these are just clues in the reality, in the outer realm, that, hey, there is a mirror here. Yeah, this is a mirror. You cannot pop a zit in the mirror. You cannot put antibiotics on it. You cannot put, nice clothes on it. This is just your cue, your sign, your bell to go within and repair that pungent, catastrophic smell, odor that comes from there, that manifests outside as this. Okay, so I hope this helps you. I'm gonna do more videos on that. This is just one that I wanted to make like this. So yeah, I will leave you to think about it. You can ask me any questions you want. I'll put my website address below, and I'm waiting for you to ask me whatever you need. Thanks. Bye.